I'm sitting down with the co-founder and the CEO of Isthmus, Ms. Carley Lake, joining us today on the Talkin Solutions Podcast. And Carley, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Can't complain.
There you go. I'm doing just fine. Thank you for asking. And Carley, just to start things out, what I like to do is just have the guest define their solution and kind of what it is that they're doing exactly, and why it's such a great fit for society and things of that nature as well.
Wow, right up the top. No, I love it. So we are building currently a mobile app, mobile platform where communities can come together to not just connect and hang out and build this trust and these social connections, but they also can come and trade their favorite things. So hopefully never have to buy something new again. Like our goal is, when you want something new, when you want something, you can just come to your community and really seek it out. So it's a place to both connect and trade. Whether it's a niche community for outdoor gear, for books, for plants, for thrifted neon jackets from the 80s. So we're really excited about it. And right now we recently raised our pre-seed, and we have one large community using the platform of people who really love slow batch brands in the US and Canada. So that's where we're starting, but we have this larger vision where you can really share and trade anything with each other.
Love it. Love it. Fantastic solution so people can get it down. I got to get the hook going. So I got to ask immediately, right? As soon as they hear the solution, they're going to be glued. They're going to be listening the whole time.
Hopefully,
so,
right?
There we go. Yeah, exactly. So Carley, with slow fashion, for people who may not know, can you just kind of, I guess, define what slow fashion means and what it is and how it compares differently to what some people might have for that standard definition of fashion?
Yeah, I like, so there's like a couple ways. So there's some particular brands. So you can consider like a brand in particular to be slow versus fast. So I think more people have heard about the like typical fast fashion brands, like a Shein and a Zara, a Primark in Europe, Forever 21. And really they're, kind of like decades now have been around where they're just like constantly producing new trends. I mean, when fashion first started, it was like you have 4 seasons, right? Like it's like summer, whatever, matching the year seasons. And now, I mean, a few years ago, it turned into 52 seasons. And then I just read an article from Wired that Shein has 6,000 new items on its website a day, which is insane. So it's like, you're really not taking the time to slow down and really think about what you want to own and what you want to wear. So that's the whole idea of like slow fashion in general. And then a slow fashion brand, which people on our platform are trading in particular, are brands that really care about paying their garment workers a fair living wage. They're using high quality, sustainable materials like linens, really caring about each aspect of the supply chain, not having a lot of material waste in the supply chain itself. So how can you use like all pieces of the fabric, or they're using upcycled, recycled fabric. So these are these brands that are really caring about from the material to point of, in the packaging, what is everything really being accounted for, from environmental to the human aspects of it. And then, you can obviously buy from these slow fashion brands, but also thinking more slowly on what you're actually purchasing. So that can include, purchasing less, wearing what you already have in your closet, thrifting, buying used. So there's both the slow fashion brands themselves, and then also just like shopping and just being more like thoughtful when you actually purchase items in general. So those are kind of ways to have this slow living lifestyle, and then also ways of supporting slow fashion brands in particular.
Awesome. Okay. So there's really kind of a couple elements to that. You kind of have what the brands and the companies are doing, and it's a definition, and then what you can do kind of as a consumer then to kind of make more responsible choices. Is that correct then?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So obviously the problem that we're kind of trying to solve here is that kind of fast fashion historically, and being more sustainable and not kind of limiting our overconsumption of products and things of that nature as well. So I guess, Carley, I would ask, like, why has the fashion industry historically kind of been so kind of more unsustainable? And then, obviously we ran into the issue of living wages and things of that nature as well. So what would you say has kind of caused some of that in the problems in the past and whatnot? And then obviously you got the great solution now, but what is kind of that issue in the past that maybe those companies kind of fell into a trap of?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a capitalist society that unfortunately I think we're putting profit over people. And I think we're just like constantly thinking how to grow our margins, shareholder value. I'm very aware I have investors, but I think it's just gotten to the point with these brands where it's like, that is all that they're caring about. They don't care about how much waste, how little they're paying their garment workers, whether it's a garment worker in Los Angeles, California, where I'm from, or in Bangladesh. They're not caring about how much water they're using. It's really like all these externalities that is a cost that's harming the planet and the people. They're not caring about. At the end of the day, it's just growth at all costs and how much money can we make for ourselves and our shareholders. And I think it's gotten to the point where it's leading us to a dead planet. It's leading us to like all of these travesties. And I think it's just gotten really far because all we're caring about is how much money we can make in growth. And I think that's why we've gotten there. And I think why people, and I don't blame the consumer at all in this. I think consumers have a lot of power, but I also don't blame individual action because we're part of this system that teaches us, whether it's advertising, the brands themselves, that the more we're on trend, the more we keep up with this, the cooler we're going to be, the more we're going to fit in. And actually, it's the opposite. This high that you get from purchasing and materialism goes away in a second. You have to constantly consume to keep up with it. It's this horrible, horrible cycle. Sorry for rambling. I'm very passionate about it. But what actually we know from science and psychology and a lot of studies out there is actually social connection, strong relationships, getting out in nature. Those actually cause really great, that cause happiness, and it's better for your well-being. And what we want to show you with Isthmus and a lot of other tools and tactics and working with, so many organizations and people in the community is that these relationships, sharing, trust, and connecting is so much bigger of a payoff than buying a new shirt every day online.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think you defined that really, really well when you try to talk about that problem, right? Like, obviously, it's a combination of many things. It's, in the past, it was for those companies, like you said, it was all about profit. How can we make money, turn things over? Obviously, I think that got carried away a little bit as well when you're talking about the shareholder value from a consumer perspective. I mean, you're just blasted with marketing material, whether it was back in the 70s, 80s, it was magazines of people that look good because they're wearing certain things or they got a nice handbag or whatever that might be. But the one thing that I'm really seeing within the last, decade plus, really maybe 2 decades, well, I'm not really quite sure, but about decade, 2 decades plus, is we've seen a really big push into kind of more sustainability, responsible choices, kind of ethics, especially as we've seen more of a global world and we're getting more insight into other countries and things of that nature as well. So I think that the fashion industry is changing a little bit, particularly in Europe. I know that there's a lot more legislation. I know that's where you're located right now as well. So I would love to kind of hear a little bit about maybe some of the differences. I know that we're obviously targeting North America with the company, but in terms of what you see just being over there versus in the perspective of North America.
Yeah, so I can kind of say, so I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and I grew up and I tell the story when I was pitching Isthmus. Like just start for kind of my experience. Los Angeles can be the most diverse, like exposure to so many communities, so many socioeconomic classes, or it can be you're in the bubble where you're just, in your car driving to your friends' homes and you're only in certain neighborhoods. So I went from a very diverse public school to at like an age where you're so influenced by so many things. I think 12, 13, I transitioned to this private school where what you wore, what you drove, I got sucked into it. How big your parents' house was like very much top of mind and really what mattered. And during that time, I got really sucked into fast fashion. I wanted to keep up with the trends. I wanted to keep up with these other people who had Louis Vuitton bags and all this stuff. And I got sucked in. And it wasn't until I really saw secondhand and how creative that actually was that really got me out of that. So I think what I've seen in Europe lifestyle I'm in Amsterdam right now, is that there's less people showing off wealth and really that it's not part of we're all affected by each other and on social media, but it's not as much as tied to the culture as I've seen in more US cities, especially in Los Angeles where I'm from. I don't know if it's because of the Protestant background, but there's this thing in Amsterdam where everyone has their curtains open, which for me was very strange coming from San Francisco, Los Angeles. that's something you don't want. You don't want people to see like your home, you don't want people to see your TV if someone steals it. And it's just like it's supposed to show like how humble you are and showing that you are humble and you don't like care about all these flashy things. So I thought culturally it's been really eye-opening and really wonderful in those aspects. And then, yeah, I think when it comes to privacy, I think when it does come to environmental protections, Europe is ahead. I will say, like, I'm not a total expert on this, but I know, more transparency in how items are made. A law just got passed in France that I think will expand to all of Europe. Is really exciting. So I think once the governments do step up and how the governments have stepped up more in Europe, I'm really excited for that because the companies will have to act and really share how they're making their clothes, and consumers care about that. So I think that'll be a really great next step. Again, sorry if I'm rambling. I want to tell the whole story of kind of where I'm from and the cultural differences I've seen too, because that's what I can speak towards.
No, you ain't rambling. You're in a great spot. You're educating us all. We're all getting more information, getting smarter because of you in the slow fashion realm and what's going on. And I think that what we're talking about here is a big problem. Obviously we're talking a lot about kind of consumerism as a whole, overconsumption, and then also talking about, paying low wages like historically has been in the past, and also how it is now, unfortunately, in some parts too. And I think that fashion is a large representative part of that. And it is because fashion is it's people's identity. People will identify with the clothes that they wear or something like that. I'm not that familiar with it because I'm the opposite. I'm like, if you could just pick out my clothes, that'd be great. Yeah, I don't need to think about it. But it is really, to me, kind of what kind of symbolizes that overconsumption is kind of that fashion, obviously electronics as well. But yeah, and Carley, I want to get to a few things. You mentioned a lot. What I really liked was the people that are connecting with community, people connecting with relationships. Want to get into that in a little bit as well. But first and foremost, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about your background and growing up in LA and then living in San Francisco and going to the private school as well. But tell me a little bit about that moment where maybe you and your co-founder or whomever kind of thought of the idea or however it might have gone. When did it kind of click? When were you like, you know what, I'm going to be the one that's going to take forward. I'm going to be the one to start this, and I'm going to be the one to kind of work to be a solution instead of, consistently being just somebody who either looks the other way or is part of the problem?
Yeah. So I was working at Uber on the safety team, and that's also really affected how we want to build this company with trust, safety, like built in. And while I was doing that, I really like that moment when I was younger, like when I discovered sustainable fashion, it like opened up my eyes to this whole new world and thrifting and sewing. And so when I was at Uber on the side, I started a blog called Thoughtful Flamingo, because this was like 2017, 2018. Sustainable fashion wasn't as popular as it is now, which is awesome to see. But I wanted to show my friends in particular and to start talking about like how cool dressing sustainably actually was. You didn't just have to wear like this like potato sack brown bag that's made out of hemp, which was like what people thought of when they thought of slow fashion. And I interviewed all these different people. How did they build their closets? Where did they shop? And I went to a conference, a sustainable fashion conference in Portland. And it was really cool. Everyone like knew each other. And I was kind of like, oh, what, like, how do they know each other? And I learned that these people, they all met each other online, and they were all learning about slow fashion and sustainability and sharing items and buying items, not on these kind of more typical marketplaces where we have secondhand, but they're going into more of these like hack together groups on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, other ways, WhatsApp groups where they were both connecting, making friends, talking about these things they loved, and learning about these different brands, and then also buying, selling, and trading together. And I was like, oh my God, they are finding so much value here, but it's so hard to transact. It's so hard to search, filter, but they just like really want these niche spaces to both connect and trade physical items. And I was like, there has to be a place where they can do both. And what I was seeing was this really unique flywheel where the more you connected, the more you wanted to share with these people versus like a random stranger on a marketplace. And then the more you shared, and there's a lot of, again, scientific data around this, the more you trust you had in these people, the more you felt connected to them. So this like flywheel would start happening. We're already seeing that on Isthmus. So I was like, there's something here. I quit my job at Uber, started to build a prototype in Bubble. I don't have any coding background, and I'm a really big fan of no code for unlocking people of all backgrounds, nonprofit backgrounds, government backgrounds. I have a tech background, but I'm not technical. And so to really test these ideas, And then from there, met my co-founder, and then we raised and hired an engineer, and we've been building since.
Love it. Sounds like you kind of took off with it a little bit then, if you will. Or it's kind of, you get to that conference and everything, you start seeing it, things start to put together, and then it kind of just kind of clicks.
Yeah, I have my co-founder really too. To thank for that. And then our Tanya Dastyar, she comes from a Microsoft PM background. And then our founding engineer, who really just got us off of Bubble, love Bubble, that got me so far, fundraised with that. And then our founding engineer, who's based in Brazil, Anthony. It's just, it's been the three of us. And we recently hired a product designer, Casey, based out of Brooklyn. So it's been really cool to just bring this asynchronous team together to work on this mission and really just be focused. And we're building fast, but also like thoughtfully. And yeah, it's been really cool so far.
Fantastic. You mentioned it, asynchronously. Oh, can't speak today. That's not good for a podcast host, is it? Anyway, Carley, so with that, what are some of the challenges that you've kind of had working from different spots, and especially different time zones as well? I mean, you got Brazil, you got New York. I believe your co-founder's in Washington, D.C., is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're in Amsterdam, obviously. So we got a little bit of different time zones and things of that nature. What types of challenges have you all kind of faced in that sense to kind of grow in this new age, especially that we're seeing it now with startups where everybody's kind of in different spots and growing online and digitally and asynchronously?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I met online via this program called On Deck. And we incorporated our business, we raised our pre-seed and did all of this and hired our engineer before we met in person, which is insane. I think I feel it's crazy. I think what's super important is looking back, when you get to know your coworkers, you build in coffee talks, you build in all these kind of micro moments you don't really think about because you're in person. How's your weekend? You're saying hi when you get to your desk, you're having lunch together. And when you work asynchronously, of course, when you jump on a call, we're not just okay, what's the project? How's your weekend? But you kind of forget about all these micro moments that really build in psychological safety and trust and getting to know someone. So I think even if it seems like a waste of time, making sure you have those moments is super important. And we've met up in person since, and we're trying to do more regular offsites, which, it is expensive, but we think just having that in-person time is also important. And then time zone wise, I'm in Amsterdam and most of the team is around Eastern time. So for me, I've just made it work. I work a little bit later than usual, but I have to just be really diligent of the hours when no one's online. I make sure I have everything I need from them the day before. So I can just be heads down and working, get all my kind of one person work done. And then around a little bit earlier than this, we all come online together, have our meetings. It's actually really helpful for me because they're all kind of blocked off together, but it makes us, have diligence, make sure we're very structured because we only have these set amount of hours together. And then we do a lot of asynchronous communication. So Loom videos, Slack, we're using Linear now. So we make sure documentation is also really important for our culture too.
Yes, documentation is huge. There's no doubt about that. I mean, documentation really, really is helpful and things of that nature when you're kind of building up a company and an organization. I love the fact that you all are working on trying to do more offsite stuff in person. I definitely think that goes. And then the micro moments, of course, are huge, right? I mean, what is life except comprised of a bunch of moments? That's basically what it is. So really cool on that front as well. So Carley, let's kind of dive into it. How does Isthmus work? What can users do? All that good stuff. Let's kind of get into the solution a little bit. You've helped us kind of define slow fashion and how that helps solve problems within kind of the fashion industry when it comes to more fair wages and then less consumption and the encouragement of kind of community and recycling clothing and things of that nature as well. But I'd love to kind of hear about how Isthmus specifically can create that community that you were talking about, foster those relationships and do things like meeting online, like you met your co-founder through On Deck, which is a great program a little bit. So how does this kind of foster that community vibe and whatnot and make people feel comfortable exchanging clothes with one another to kind of surpass that stigma that, oh, I don't want to wear something that's not in style. Somebody already wore that, that type of vibe. I know that exists. So how does this kind of work on that sense?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought the last part up. So I love research. I was a journalism major, so I'm just like, give me the facts. And before I was reading a lot of research, like there's two big barriers to entry for people to even like associate themselves with used clothing and used items. And one, it's like that stigma of who wore it before me? Like, is it dirty? Like, gross? Like, And then two, is it socially acceptable in my community? And what's great, we hope with our platform is we really tackle both. And we really hope that can unlock secondhand and trading for like any person, whether they've engaged with it before or not. Because, right, of course, it's socially acceptable in your community. You're in a trading community of people who love what you love. And two, you know who it's from. It's from someone you trust. It's from someone who told you about the coolest new denim sale going on, or told you how to mend your jacket, who lives close by. So we're really hoping to unlock used for so many people, because unfortunately, like, people are still shopping at Shein. So sorry, like my enemy number one. But yeah, so we got, I mean, really lucky. I met in the group I was at this conference with, it's called Sell Trade Slow Fashion, and they're a community of thousands of people on Instagram who are trading, buying and selling, and also connecting around these slow fashion brands. And I got really close with the co-founder of it, Mariah, who's based in Atlanta, Georgia. And I just talked to her. I was like, hey, like, what are your barriers? Like, how are you even building this community on Instagram? Instagram's not made for like selling items across community members and posting all this stuff, and really just got to understand her pain points. And so right now we're working with them, and that's our main community, is kind of bringing them over. And so right now, every Tuesday, the community comes to Isthmus and we have a trading day. So our idea too is like, we don't want you to feel this FOMO keeping up. Like, one day a week, you trade, you come together with the community. During the week, you can add items to your closet, you can share what you're looking for, but Tuesday is the one day where everyone comes together, trades their items. And then we also have a discussion section where people can connect and learn and hang out. That's available all through the week. But if you miss a Monday, that question will still be there. The advice will still be there. It's not hopefully creating this FOMO. So you have kind of both sides of the coin, right? The connecting and the sharing. And then one of our favorite things is, you bring items back in the community, you relist. So you see who's had it before you. Did they go to a wedding in it? Did they mend it? Did they have this really great memory attached to it? So another thing we want to show is the more you wear, the more you share the items, they actually become cooler. They have this story. It's a shared artifact. And so, yeah, those are a few key components of Isthmus right now. And we're hoping in the next few months to start bringing on new groups and new communities who also want to engage.
Yeah, what type of kind of feedback are you getting from the customers or the users and whatnot on it as well? Like, how do you kind of bring them into the community, especially for people who may not be? You mentioned, hey, everybody's in this community. Of course, they want to trade. They're all in, slow fashion, sustainability. They all love it. They, fair wages and stuff like that. What about for the people that you're trying to maybe try to appeal to that are kind of new to it, that have some interest, but they don't really know what things are and things of that nature as well? What types of things can you kind of do with the platform or that they can kind of go into and see that can kind of educate them a little bit more and make them want to be a part of this community and kind of spiral that growth a little bit?
Yeah. So I think what's nice about the slow fashion group is we're just going and talking to people who already like these brands. So that's been really helpful. I think for us, what's really important is like showing how fun trading is and how much more fun it is. I think that when we acquire users outside of the slow fashion world, maybe a group of people who love outdoor gear, like, it is so much more fun to share and have these memories. And we've actually gotten some feedback from users this week, community members, like one of my friends, Rebecca, I met her through the app, got this really interesting lampshade hat. And she was like, I would have never bought this, but with trading, it's like low stakes. I'm going to try all these weird, cool things I'd never want to wear before. And then I posted that on our Instagram. And then another community member, Erica, messaged me. She's like, oh my God, I totally feel this. I just got these tie-dye pants I would have never bought, but because I can trade them, it's like so fun. So we really want to, of course, the sustainable aspects are part of it, but I don't think that's as, these words, sexy. It's a little intimidating in this world. So we want to show really how fun it is to just like connect and trade with these people who love the same things you do. So that's what we're going to try to do, and really show and how much money you can save. Like yeah, we're going to try to really lead with that versus like how sustainable it is, because that doesn't really resonate with everyone.
Right. I mean, off the top of my head, and again, I'm not a fashion expert. I don't shop. That's not my thing. But for me personally, off the top of my head, it's kind of like your own personal shopper in a way, because you're kind of getting like all these suggestions that you would have never really gotten if you were just going to go to the store yourself. Right. Now you got a community, like you said, with the hat or the lampshade, and then a different shirt. It's like, oh, okay. I think I could rock
Yeah.
that. And I'm not going to just trade it, try it out.
Yeah, and it's really cool. The discussion space is great for connecting, but what we're also seeing is it's just so cool. You discover all these like Easter eggs, but we're also seeing is people are learning via the discussion. So maybe you don't know a lot about different brands or items. And so people are like, hey, what are great pregnancy items? What are great bike short recommendations you have? So like the discussion piece of it helps people who might be interested in slow fashion, but don't know a lot about it really learn about these brands, discover. So that's been a good kind of pairing with the actual trading where you can learn and you can connect, even if you're new to the slow fashion world or whatever community you're joining on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. And what I really love about all this as well is that it's so community driven, right? It's fostering relationships, making new friends, that have a similar, interest in you in fashion, right? And then obviously you kind of take it to that next level for, sustainable fashion and things of that nature as well for people to learn. But it's also what creates change, right? Like we talked a lot earlier about government and legislation and all that type of stuff. But, people demand things and people are more interested in things, and you have a big community like that, which Isthmus sounds like it's doing, that can kind of foster change as well into the practices of what some brands are as you continue to grow a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think this is so lame. I like just started to like free form journal. It's really helped me in the mornings, just to stay creative and like excited and yeah. I'm like, and I was thinking about this idea about like individual power versus community power, and I think like so many places now are like so individual focus, like getting, your blue check mark on Twitter or something like that. But like, and it's just like feels so individualistic. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we need thought leaders, we need change makers, but like, how cool is this community power? Like when you actually all come together as kind of this block, as this unit, like you can create so much change. And I think that's what I'm really excited about with like, hopefully next year is just like how communities can really drive change and the power of coming together and helping each other out and not just doing everything to get ahead yourself, if that makes any sense. So and I've learned a lot about that through not just like fellow entrepreneurs, but also just like grassroots organizations, like the Sunrise Movement, Extinction Rebellion, and just like how communities can just come together to, again, create change, pressure politicians. And I'm really excited about that. And I hopefully, we're not like a politically minded app. We want people to have fun, trade, and connect. But I'm actually really excited for what power these communities have for the better. Maybe I live in my weird utopian world, but that's something else I'm excited about.
Well, in utopia or anything like that is just a crazy word until it actually becomes reality, right? I mean, look back at like the 5-day work week or whatever, Ford was like, we don't have to work 7 days. Let's do 5 days. And now we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe that'll be the same thing for a 4-day work week. We're already seeing stuff there. Hope. So yeah, let's find out. But on that note too, with the application in the community, I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit where you have that. Is it just kind of like so that community platform where the discussion platform where everybody's kind of talking and whatnot, is that all just kind of like, do you provide certain topics for people to kind of jump in and talk about? Is it all community driven where someone can just kind of do a post? How does that work a little bit? What level of it is education and fun and stuff like that? And kind of how does that kind of work in the application right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're trying to we have topics. So we're trying to like help people understand what types of things you can post. But we also have like other and suggested topics. We don't want to like pigeonhole. We want to see what organically comes. We also have 3 amazing moderators, I should say, we see the moderator role of these different communities as huge. Like they're giving so much to these communities. They're helping with discussions. They're educating. So the founder of Sell Trades with Action, Mariah, is actually one of our moderators. So a person named Sarah and Angela, also based in the US, and they help really answer discussions. They do like intros, like everyone introduce yourself, and they're really helping kind of foster a lot of that connection and content. And then we're also trying to amplify members of the community who are doing really awesome things. So one of our community members is a style coach. discovering your personal style. So we're going to do kind of like threads where you can ask them, what works well for me? So we're trying to kind of see what content works really well. But so far, the best content has just been or people organically asking for item advice, questions about different brands and how they size things. We've seen like a lot of organic communication. This last week, someone asked, let's do in-person clothing swap. So it's anything from like advice on brands to ways to connect, how to clean your items. But these are the experts. So it's been really cool to see people actually responding with really helpful advice for the members too.
Absolutely. Has any part of your research and whatnot with the app's been talking with brands themselves, maybe brands that identify as more kind of slow fashion style? I mean, I imagine you probably are aware of many of them, but has any of that actually involved like maybe talking with them or plans in the future, or how's that kind of worked in?
Yeah, we definitely want the brands to play a role. We've done some really just guides that we have put on Instagram. Now we're keeping a lot in the app because that's like a benefit of being in the app, but where we kind of call out really great brands doing stuff. And so we'll start like messaging them and just say how much our community loves them. And we really see like maybe a brand can come host and talk about the latest collection. Like we do see brands playing a role in the community to come. We haven't done too much engagement to date.
How do you see kind of the sustainable fashion trend slow fashion trend kind of going in the next 10 years or so? Because like you had mentioned, even back as early as 2016, 17, it wasn't as prominent as it is now. And we've kind of, I know what it is now, and like I said, zero attention to fashion for me. So, it's definitely kind of growing, and maybe, I don't know if mainstream's the right word, but it's getting more popular as well. So I'd be curious to see just kind of, how Isthmus plans to kind of grow with it and kind of be a leader in that space. And then also just in terms of an industry, how you kind of see it projecting forward.
Yeah, it's a really great question. Interesting. We send a weekly newsletter. Again, journalism major. I'm like constantly talking about all these things with the people, but it was interesting actually. One, not to start off on a negative foot, but I'm going to is greenwashing, because brands think that this is trending. They are starting to do things to make it look like they're sustainable, but they're really not. So we just did a whole feature about like how to spot greenwashing. What does it mean? And greenwashing is basically like saying you're sustainable, but really not, or changing like one really small thing, like, oh, we're using this one fabric, but you're still producing millions of garments that are going to eventually go to waste, right? And you're still part of this like overconsumption model. So I think like educating people, and I think people are getting smarter about that, which I'm really excited about. Sorry, to start off a negative, that's one thing that's happening because it's becoming popular, but I think consumers are getting smarter about it, which is really awesome to see. And we can also help educate. And yeah, I'm just excited that people can see that you can have more fun, be more creative when you actually buy used, and you can actually find so much more value than buying something new every single day. That's my hope, and what I'm really excited about. And I think I love TikTok. Speaking of individual action, but it's one of my it's one of my favorite platforms because I think there's so much creativity and people kind of pushing back with thrifting and upcycling. And some of my favorite videos are like I'm millennial, Gen Zers taking like these old things they find at Goodwill and turning it into like a cool like going out outfit. And I'm just hoping that narrative continues. And wins over these kind of fast fashion hauls that we're still seeing. I hope this kind of overtakes and yeah, I don't know. I there's two worlds. Like you hear the Sheins of the world, but then you also hear like the thrifters of the world. And I think hopefully in 10 years, the thrifters will be the cool ones and that'll continue to be amplified.
Yeah, and I think that it very much so. I think the great thing about social media and those individualistic actions and things of that nature as well is it brings awareness, right? If you have an individual who's got loads of followers and they're like, hey, check this out. I just went to the thrift shop, pulled some Macklemore and did all that good stuff, But no, that's a good following. You have a point?
Yeah, no, I think I don't want to put down like individual power versus community power. I think like one thing I'm really excited about that I think culture needs to lead the way too. Love Island, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a reality show
yeah.
in the UK. Actually, I've never seen it, but I'm going to. They got a lot of, I think they're contestants, what they're called, people on that show were up to date with wear a lot of fast fashion. And now this season, eBay is their sponsor. So I'm so excited about that because that is like a huge moment. And so many people watch that show, and they're gonna see like, oh wow, my favorite person is wearing this used item. It's socially acceptable. I will too. So I think there needs to be more of that, and really people in the media stepping up and showing that dressing, thrifting, and thrifted clothes is cooler than going to the mall.
Absolutely. And again, your community platform, really, I think what's great about it is it does foster that connection, right? You allow yourself to look at other people who are looking cool or embracing themselves. Confidence is such a big thing as well. If you have these people who are just embracing themselves and confident wearing what they're wearing, and, people are going to go, you know what, that looks cool. I want to try it out as well. Like I said, I kind of think it is kind of like having a personal shopper or something. I mean, you got people recommending clothes that you wouldn't wear. You have people wearing them in a way that, wearing them in a way that you may not have thought of if you just went to the store yourself, right? And tried some stuff on and then, asked your friend, oh, you should wear that. I mean, you're getting, it's innovative. It's creative.
Yeah.
So I think that part can be a really attractive idea for people on that platform as well.
Yeah, the inspiration piece of it. We're still trying to think like, sharing the items you've traded, how you've worn them. I think we haven't even scratched the surface of that, but thank you for bringing that up. I'm like, I need to dive deeper into that.
Well, I'm glad it can be informative for you as well.
Of course.
In the podcast episode. So really interesting on that front. And then I guess kind of the last question I kind of have on that note too is I want to talk a little bit too about what you think the really good benefits are going to be if this continues to raise about more fair wages, whether that's for people working, within the country or another country where it's getting outsourced as well. And what do you think the positive impacts will be of that and kind of uplifting their lives there on that front versus in the past where, they've been stuck and having to just tie a shoelace or whatever it might be for, 8 hours a day or something like that. So how do you kind of foresee that changing a little bit as people get more included and passionate about this?
Yeah. I'm really excited. Kristen Gillibrand just introduced a bill around fair wages in the fashion industry. So there is a movement in the US, which is really good. And I think there's been this thing, if it's made in the US, it means it's people are getting a living wage. I think what's really important first is to be aware that this is an issue. And I think we're at the point where people are aware, which is great. One of my mentors, Rebecca Blake Thompson, has written a lot about how in LA, garment workers are paid $3 an hour for clothing brands like Ross and Fashion Nova. So this is happening. And I think there's awareness and now bills and people acting and making sure there are fair wages for these workers. That's really exciting. And I think a lot of people are caring more about workers' rights in the past few years. And unions and unionizing is happening more and more at Amazon, at Starbucks, at the John Deere warehouse, I think. Was that right? Sorry. I'm not the 100% expert on this. I'm just really passionate about it. So I think that has been really cool. And I think, again, community-powered organizations, grassroots organizations, unions are, I hope, going to do so much more work to pressure politicians, to pressure corporations, to really make sure fair wage, living wage, minimum wage, getting higher is happening across the board, no matter what country you're in. So really excited about that. And I hope when I grew up, I looked up to, I remember I wanted to be a billionaire. I looked up into that. And now I think that's honestly disgusting. Sorry, I'm everyone that doesn't kill me. I think hoarding money when there is so much inequality in this world is truly disgusting. And I'm excited that hopefully when I have kids, they're going to be looking up to the head of the unions at Amazon and really seeing these people as superheroes instead of people just trying to keep all the wealth for themselves. So I think that is changing. I'm really excited about that. Sorry, I don't want to offend people, but
Yeah, no, I mean, what I think is anything about human beings and whatnot and the way we work as a society is that we constantly adapt, we constantly change, and we constantly pivot. We've been doing that the whole entire history of humankind, and more so at an exponential rate, since the Industrial Revolution and the farming and agricultural revolution, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It will be really interesting and exciting to see what that's like, even put it a step further, with your grandkids or something,
right?
There's even more time to be changed. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like. But Carley, I want to talk a little bit now about how can people get on this app? How can they use it? How can they get involved? Where do they go to sign up? How can they support all that good stuff? So I guess first and foremost, Carley, if I am listening to this and I go, wow, I really like what she had to say. She had some good stuff. I'm going to join this community. How can I do so?
Yeah, definitely follow us on Isthmus_app. I know it's really hard to say and spell. We're changing our name, but for now it's ISTHMUS_app. We have a wait list, also isthmusapp.com. So let us know what group you'd want to join or be a part of. If you're into slow fashion brands, we have a community waiting for you. So just follow the link in our Instagram bio. And yeah, we'd just love to hear from you.
Awesome. And then I believe you had mentioned too earlier in this episode that in the future you hope to expand into other spaces as well,
Yes.
not just fashion too. Is that correct?
Yeah, so let us know. It's funny. We like every day whether it's handmade items or sneakers or baby clothes, like we really want to hear from you, like what type of group, whether you already have it, maybe it's 5 of you on your neighborhood block, or it's 5,000 of you on Facebook. Like we really want to hear from you what groups you want to see, and what we can build from you, whether you're a moderator already or want to start your own group or just want to join a group eventually.
Yeah, and then within that wait list and the application to get set to use it and things of that nature as well, is it going to be mobile, desktop? What do you got for us in terms of web or mobile or both?
Yeah, right now we're building with React. Oh, sorry, my thing went off. So we're in the App Store, Play Store, and we have web too. So once you join, you can kind of go from all those platforms. Yeah, right now it is invite only. So we recommend like adding your name to the wait list or messaging us on Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. You got React. Using React Native then for mobile as well?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There you go. The reusable code.
React Native. Exactly.
Awesome. Fantastic. Right? We're not going to geek out. Don't worry about it. We're all good. And then awesome. And then Carley, you mentioned on social media, you have a following for people to kind of support you there and to kind of get some feedback on that front as well. Anything else that you would like to add in order for people to kind of hop on and join or interact with you, or maybe some actionable tips for people to get a little bit more educated on slow fashion as well?
Yeah, my Instagram is at Thoughtful Flamingo if you want to see what I'm up to in Amsterdam and trying not to buy new clothes for a year. But a couple organizations that I really love are, if you're more into like activism, I would say Extinction Rebellion, Sunrise Movement, Remake specifically for fashion, Fashion Revolution for fashion too. Those are a few organizations that I really love who are doing really cool things.
Awesome. You still got that blog going for Thoughtful Flamingo, putting those journalism skills to work? Or?
Yeah, we're still doing it, doing more content for Isthmus in particular. But yeah, trying to balance like my own personal writing and entrepreneurship is always hard, but trying to do that.
Yeah, is that you had mentioned, the content for Isthmus as well. Is there going to be planned for that in the future to kind of have an extensive blog or kind of content creation kind of section for that in terms of educational stuff or community driven stuff?
Yeah, right now we're trying to figure out, like, do we have an outward facing blog for acquisition or do we keep it really just like in the app for just members of the community? So figuring that out. But I love writing. I think education is a huge part of all of this. So we really do want to generate content and figure out how that fits into the ecosystem.
Awesome. Fantastic. And then I guess what would be your one message to people out there if they want to learn about slow fashion and being kind of more sustainable in that space and whatnot? Like what's the one message that you would say to them?
Yeah, I think the most sustainable thing you can do is just shop your own closet and shop your friend's closet. I think that's number one. This is from my best friend's closet in LA. I go back and steal all her stuff. So I think that's number one. Like it's so fun. It's so creative. Fashion Revolution's amazing. Remake World is amazing. There's a lot of great organizations who are just really helping with both policy, education, amplification of paying garment workers a fair wage, shopping less, and really making that overall just cool and something to really have fun with.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like you said, you can just kind of start, I mean, as you wait on the waiting list for the Isthmus, go ask your best friend, borrow a sweater or something like that, right? A scarf it's summertime, so I guess scarves are kind of irrelevant, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, go in your grandma's closet, like your partner's closet. Also, one thing that I think a lot of people are intimidated by is like, oh, I have to be perfect. Like I have to buy zero waste everything. And that's not true. I think people want you to think that so you don't do it, but I still have fast fashion pieces. I haven't been sustainable since the day I was born. So just try it, see if you like it. And it's okay to start slow. There we go. Slow fashion. Start slow. There's a good.
There we go. It's all encompassing. It makes sense.
Right?
Ease yourself into it. Bada bing, bada boom. There you go. Perfect. Hey, Carley, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and educating us a little bit about slow fashion, the benefits of it, and then, what things that we can be doing in terms of kind of moving forward as a society to stop that overconsumption and really have fun with your community and other people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't offend too many billionaires, and it was great chatting with you. And yeah, thanks for building this platform too and getting this information out there.
Yeah, well, if it's a decent billionaire, then he'll throw you a bunch of money to help grow this a little bit, and then get it going on that front. Who knows? But anyway,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then that way, maybe that's the message that they should be doing, right? Share the wealth. But anyway, Carley, thank you so much again, and it's going to wrap up this edition of the Talkin Solutions podcast. And what we are going to do, as always, is feature her links throughout this podcast week. So if you're listening during launch week, you can check that out on the Instagram page, and then of course go to the website cheshtech.com/Talkin Solutions Podcast. And as we get that new website launch, you'll see the information regarding Isthmus or Carley, and then of course the new a name as well as they go through that change, but an opportunity for you to jump on that platform, get on the wait list, if you will, and to be a part of this community and get your own personal shopper, things of that nature, get some inspiration.
I'm feeling that, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm here for. Get those ideas and those things flowing and make yourself look good out there and be more sustainable and be more ethical with pay as well on that front. So support all that great thing. So we appreciate you coming on, and we will get at you in our next episode of the Talkin Solutions podcast. And as always, I appreciate you listening. Drop a review, subscribe if you enjoyed this as well. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week. Thanks for listening to the Talkin Solutions with the Chesh podcast. Tune in every Wednesday for a new episode, and you can find out more about our featured guests and their solutions on our Talkin Solutions podcast Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels, as we focus on highlighting individuals providing solutions to social problems and bringing optimism to the world.